Thanks, everybody. Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Ricky Camilleri. And you know, often when folks come in, I say they are one of the funniest or one of my favorite. But our next guest, and I don't just say this because she's backstage, is my actual favorite. She's a true original whose career, characters, and performances have only gotten deeper and more beautiful as she's gone on. And her new HBO series is no different. In Mrs. Fletcher, Kathryn Hahn plays the title character, a single mother who begins rediscovering her sexuality after her son takes off for college. Let's take a look at Mrs. Fletcher.
We're free from our kids. Take a long bath, turn your brain off, and think about opening up to new things.
College is a big leap, and not everyone's ready.
We're gonna do a little role play about consent.
I didn't consent to being bored out of my school.
Ever since my son went away to college, I've been having these crazy fantasies.
What were you gonna do about it?
Nothing.
Do it.
High school, everyone likes me. Now I'm the bad guy. I don't know how that happens. So you want to hang out?
Trying to run game on me while I'm giving you a comfort hug?
Moments in your life when you made a choice, knowing that that decision would change the shape of your life.
What are we doing?
What were you like back then?
It used to be fun, now I'm boring.
I think you're secretly still fun.
Grab my ass.
I love it when you tell me things to do. Tell me to suck your fingers.
Suck my finger.
Okay.
Why don't we just do it the regular way?
Everybody, please welcome the great Kathryn Hahn. Woo! Hey,
Hi.
thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Look at this.
I know, look at that.
Buses and billboards all over the city. What does that make you feel like?
My daughter was like, what are you looking at on that laptop? Is it something inappropriate? And I was like, no, May, come on. No. So.
When did you feel, or did you ever imagine that at some point in your career you would become a kind of the image or the go-to woman to represent, I think, sexuality and like what women deal with at a certain age?
No, I mean, I'm just an actor. I had no idea. It's like one foot in front of the other. I had no, this is not, no.
Afternoon Delight,
Yeah.
Transparent, I Love Dick,
Yes.
Private Life, and Mrs. Fletcher.
Yes.
All very different in different characters, but also similar in...
Well, I mean, I suppose it's just like, I suppose it's just the human experience of being a human woman. It's not necessary, and some of them have to do with sexuality for sure. They all those are really full and rich and complicated parts, which I had never anticipated being able to play at this stage in the game, and I'm so grateful to it for sure. But I didn't certainly set out for this chapter to be all about exploring a woman's sexuality for sure. But yeah, I'm just an actor.
What kind of parts did you first start getting when you first started acting? Like in drama school or, I know just after when you started landing movie parts, it was kind of the best friend in different stuff. But when you were in drama school, what were you kind of typecast as?
I mean, in drama school, it was like Polonius or like Grandma in Grapes of Wrath.
You were Grandma in Grapes of Wrath? Oh, no.
Oh, yes. Grandma Jode. Just comforting Rosa Sharon. Yeah, I was always kind of, not really ever the ingenue, always kind of grandma. So yeah, and like Polonius, a lot of dudes, played a lot of dudes. There was some, I remember playing though, in college I remember playing, there was this amazing Maria Irene Fornes play, who's one of my favorite playwrights, and there was a play called Fefu and Her Friends, and the part was Julia, and I remember it like incredibly vividly because I remember that was like a turning point for me, I don't know if you are familiar with that playwright, but she was amazing. She also wrote a play called Mud, which I loved madly, and anyway, that was the work of her really moved me. But school was definitely where you were able to do all the parts that you would never get cast in real life, and so that was where we were able to to go for broken always, and it was only when I kind of started working and throwing myself out there into this business, where I thought, oh, I guess I'm only seen in these certain ways, and then it was like the best friend, I guess, or like the quirky best friend. Then if it was more specific, and I started just to be seen in this very kind of narrow way, and then I'm so great, excited to be working or even earning a paycheck as an actor, but I just knew that there was a big part of me that had more to offer, I guess.
Well, this sort of exploring a woman's sexuality at this age is also sort of, I think, helped you craft this persona as an effortless actress. I know it's not effortless, but one of the things that I just love about your performances is that they always come off effortless, and they always come off like someone who can find the truth of a scene without having to sort of show off about it. Whereas early in your career, you were not a show-offer in any way, but I feel like directors cast you as a kind of arch performance in some way. Does that make sense?
Totally. I was tap dancing my heart out, though, Ricky.
Yeah.
I really was.
Like,
I
we were
was
just
tap
talking-
dancing my heart out,
We
for
were just
sure.
talking about Revolutionary Road backstage, which is a movie I love, and I love your performance in it. But it is a version of those comedic performances that you were doing. It's in a dramatic movie, but you are being asked to be tightly wound and to be very theatrical.
Yeah, I was working really hard back then, for sure. I was working very hard. I was
As opposed to now not just kicking back, resting on your laurels.
just showing up.
What do you want to do? Can I wear a robe? Okay, I'm looking at porn on a computer.
It's a different kind of work, though. Like, you show up and you're right. You're like throwing your energy, I think, into the wrong stuff. Like, I was just working so hard. Like, I was, like, the homework was wrong. I can see some of those performances where I was just like pushing. You just push too hard because, again, like, you're trying to be the good performer, like, I was just so excited to be there. I was just pushing the gas too hard on certain things, and I tried to, like, build something up, build a character before I arrived, like, all these things that I think the older I got. Are you allowed to swear on this thing?
Oh yeah, fuck
Like,
yeah.
the older I got, the more like, and having kids, like, you just get a real big case of the fuckets, I think. And the more you realize, like, you start to find, you realize, like, oh, you really find who you're playing through the people through the eyes of your scene partner. So a lot of it happens when you arrive. Like, there's only so much you can do, and if you start to hard knuckle it or make these huge decisions before you actually arrive on the day, it, like, stops a flow and a discovery that can happen when you arrive. And there's so much that is just given to you in the script that if you go outside of it too far or make so many hard decisions, it just stops something. And that was a huge discovery, I think, for me, who had been just trying to do my homework, and it just stops the art. Or, I hate to say it. No, I don't want to say that, but you know what I mean. It just stops the flow.
Which is exactly, I mean, well, that's what they tell you often in acting school, right? That you should, or at least good acting schools, I think, tell you that you should show up, sure, having done your homework, but be totally prepared to let all of that go.
Yeah, my acting teacher in grad school, the great Evan Yunula, said her kid, when she was talking to him about acting, had said, "What's the big deal? You just learn your lines and be that guy," which I thought was the best, because it's the be that guy that's the mysterious part. That's the mysterious part, is to, like, it's like, that's the thing that just, like, you just have to, like, let it just happen. If you try to hard knuckle it, that's when you can see it.
Well, you see so often young actors trying to be a different person, trying to be a different character.
That's who I was. I basically was wearing a fake mustache.
And as actors get older and settle into their careers a little bit, they sort of find that the different person is a version of them, and they can sort of play a part of them that is that other person, if that makes sense.
Exactly. It's always interesting to me when people ask the question, are you able to drop it at the end of the day? Are you able to, like, drop the character and go home? And, like, how do you separate? And when actors are like, oh yes, I can leave it at, I leave it at this the dressing, my trailer, and I'm able to go. And I'm always interested in that because it's hard. It's not hard for me, but it is. I think. Your job is just still your life. It's still just time spent. Like that is time I spend with these amazing performers. And I learned so much about myself and life in these scenes with these people. And that's just like time I spend on this planet. And so I can't just drop it.
Well, because
you know
so
what I
much-
mean? It's like there's so much that I've gained from these amazing experiences, and these parts that I'm playing are so, in a way, weirdly like aspirational. Like I can't be this way in my real life at all. So I'm like learning a lot, I think, as I'm playing them. So anyway.
Well, so much of your homework now is not how does this person move and what are their tics and what do they wear. Your homework now is how would I do this if I was in this situation, or what part of me would respond this way. So you start exploring these aspects of yourself.
Yeah, or I'm not even asking those questions. They just like happen.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I all of a sudden it starts to move. You know what I mean? Like all of a sudden it just starts to accumulate. It just starts to happen because of the circumstances. So like you just don't even. It just. I don't know if this sounds like weird process talk because it's like.
I like it.
Oh God. I mean, I don't. It's a horrible.
You saw the look on my face. You're like, oh no, it's pretentious.
Yes.
Sorry.
No, because I didn't want it. Just because it's like because it's not even. It's just like it's just interesting to think about. Like because, it's I don't. It's just an awesome. It just feels like. It's just an awesome chapter of trying not to overthink, and I don't think it's just about like, work. It's just also like just in where I am as a person, I guess. Just being a mom.
We should
Not
talk
enough bandwidth.
We should talk more specifically about the show, but I mean, just following up on this a little bit because I did just watch it and we were talking about it in the green room. Revolutionary Road, you're with Kate Winslet, Leonardo DiCaprio, Sam Mendes, David Harbour. It's maybe your 4th job that you've booked, if I was looking at IMDb correctly.
Yeah, I had been on a television. I had been doing this television show.
Crossing Jordan,
Yes,
right?
at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, feature-wise, yeah.
What was that like for you? Was that nerve-wracking? Were you okay? I mean, you're amazing in the movie.
Thank you for asking. I was very nervous and very intimidated, and also but then when I arrived, felt very a part of it, and it felt like a theater troupe, and they were all such incredible, just makers of things, and I just remember the feeling of the totality of the experience, like walking onto that set and that house, and you would like everything, like you would open up the drawers in the house and everything would be from the period. Like there would be coasters, and I just remember the feeling of, it was just like just an actor's dream come true. Like the costumes were everything, every underpinning, everything was all, even if no one would ever see it, you just knew that everything, all the underneath was from the period. And that was just like the dreamiest. And then to be able to look into the eyes of those performers, and have Sam, that was crazy. Yeah, I loved those performances in those movies. And Michael Shannon in that movie is like, and then my on-screen husband was David Harbour, who's just like, I was so excited for that crazy trajectory, and he's just such so excited for him. He's the bee's knees.
Is that one of those incidents where you or happenings where you get on set and you're surrounded by major stars, A-list stars, and you're like, very early in your career, and you realize like, oh, they are actually only these big stars because they are doing the work and they care about what they're doing right now.
No, they were just like, we were all, they were just incredible actors digging in, working incredibly hard and really, really tough material. It was like a really
incredibly tough material.
Very tough material, and they were so beautiful and like such raw nerves, both of them. Yeah, it was really beautiful to watch how vulnerable they both were.
And here's a good segue. Speaking of tough material, Mrs. Fletcher.
Real good.
You like that? Yeah, I've been doing this for a while. So one question is, how much research did you have to do going into this role? And by research, I obviously mean watching pornography. Yeah.
I actually didn't have to do that much watching of pornography.
For you, it's depressing.
It is. There is so much. But you know, it was because porn in this for her and for her son, and I should set it up that it is kind of a dual story of a single mom, Eve Fletcher, who I play, and my college-bound son, played by Jackson White, who's so phenomenal. And it's kind of like porn kind of becomes this, I would say, kind of catalyst for these kind of inverse journeys that they go on. Porn for her becomes like this allowance for her to kind of start to explore sides of herself that she didn't think she was allowed to. She had always been for somebody else, like someone's mom, she always had just been giving. Her name even, Mrs. Fletcher, like she had been divorced 10 years and she's still holding on to this moniker. And her son, you know, who'd always been considered kind of the cool kid in high school and kind of a bully and kind of a jerk, and had learned kind of about intimacy and vulnerability and relationships and sex through internet porn.
And also through the ability to objectify the women that he went to school with.
Yeah, everybody kind of allowed it to happen. All of a sudden gets to college and that shit just doesn't fly anymore. And so, yeah, in terms of watching the porn, I didn't really need to. Porn for us was kind of like, I mean, at least for Eve, it was kind of like this Gandalf for her. Like it was kind of like her guide to this new life that she didn't think was possible. And you know, porn is so private. It started such an internal journey for her. And it can be good and bad. You know what I mean? It can be an awesome place for exploration, and it can be a beautiful thing, as well as an unreal expectation of what sexuality and intimacy is, and also with like how free it is and how available it is. And the access is so, I'm looking at this like it's my phone, not just like the palm of my hand. Just so you guys know. Just for clarity. But this is just not reading my own palm.
Well, Kathryn,
I also do mime.
You know, a real actor, we would have just gotten it. You wouldn't have had to tell.
Right. Just want to make sure you guys know, this is my phone. But I would have like held it, not just like that. Bring, bring. But this is.
If you didn't have the mic, you would show us with your other hand. You would scroll.
Right, I'd be like, yeah. But then you couldn't hear me. So I had to like say it in my mind. I was like, what's more important? But anyway, this is. But it's so crazy how the access is just like, it's just so scary how one can just like see some images that are really shocking so crazy easily. So, don't even know where I was going with that. I got distracted by my mime work.
It's been a while since you've done mime work, huh? Who knew you?
I just got a mime look right now. What if I got up and did some mime?
French mime. Who knew you'd come to the build stage?
Someone fly in my beret.
When these parts started coming, I would imagine it kind of started with Afternoon Delight, right? Sort of women exploring sexuality and finding different parts of
I had a little
themselves.
teeny part on a show called Hung, which also
Oh,
was
that's
like,
right. Excuse me.
No.
Right. With Thomas Jane, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Alexander Payne produced that show.
Yeah.
Has there been any trepidation? They've all been deeply written, beautiful parts, so in no way do they feel like someone is exploiting you or getting you on screen naked for no reason at all. But I
wouldn't do that. I mean, trepidation, again, like it's so weird, Ricky, because there was no premeditation. It was no like, oh, this is going to be a big political chapter. Like, I'm going to have this say. Like, it was honestly just one. It's just been one opportunity of like working with a creator that I was excited to work with on material that seemed really deep and exciting and had asked more of me than I had been asked before, that I felt safe and galvanized into walk into, and it had just kind of like gone from there. It started like snowballing from there, and and like even to work with Tamara Jenkins and on Private Life, which was about infertility. Like, so it hadn't been just it had just been about a woman. To me, it's been just about deepening women's experiences, maybe post an age where, historically speaking, maybe one had seen an expiration date. So that's been really exciting to me. That especially that young women can can look maybe at the work that's being done and see that it's not that, like, it just that this engine, like, because it's bananas that would even be a thing, you know.
You're married. You have 2 kids. You're married to basically, I think, your college boyfriend. Is that true?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, I know, it's bananas.
I'm curious if these are the issues that are brought up in Private Life or even in Mrs. Fletcher are issues that are things that you have thought about yourself, or if, because your marriage is great, you've got 2 kids, you're a mother, you've got a case of the fuckets, they're kind of new issues that you think about, that you then have to wrap your head around and think about other women's experiences.
No, I mean, I think it's like I mean, it's interesting. I think I'm in my mid-40s. It's like I do have a awesome, long, deep marriage, which I'm so grateful for, and a beautiful family, and my home life is really boring. And
and you had, excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I read the New York Times profile of you recently, and you had one of the most beautiful quotes about marriage, which was that it feels like you're re-meeting each other all the time, which I thought that was so sweet and so nice.
Yeah, he's a pretty special human, and we like, I think that it's probably very interesting I know it's very interesting to him that that this chapter of my work life happens to be about this stuff. It's gotta be
is he ever like,
very interesting.
Is this on your mind? I don't, like, where is this coming from?
But he knows that it's like that it's like the work that I'm exploring with these women and these creators and like all this stuff is like work, and he's so crazy proud, and and he knows, like, big picture, that it's important, and is very secure human, but it's I know, just being a woman in her mid-40s and having a lot of women and having a ton of women friends, that we're all just like, there is such like a weird, like, there's been historically such a weird fucking shame or just kind of like invisibility cloak over so much of what this chapter is, like, whatever it is, perimenopausal, like all this stuff over like this chapter, which is actually a really like mysterious, powerful time. And so it's been exciting to be working with these women that want to like take it off and like really look at it, investigate it, and that just feels pretty powerful to me.
It is by and large such a more interesting, complex story than men in their mid-40s. Because by and large the industry has been dominated by male storytellers and male executives.
It's like the midlife crisis is like getting the Porsche crap.
Boring fucking story. It's like some white guy who's like, "Is this my family? I don't know what I don't like my job. I don't know what to do."
Yeah, all of a sudden there's a red Porsche in the driveway. Exactly.
Yeah, where like a woman's story is like, my body is changing, things are happening, I don't even know how to handle this. Society is telling me to do one thing, I feel another thing. My kid is leaving the house. Yeah. It's such a more complex story than dude who like wants to feel young again.
But I think there's something interesting in Mrs. Fletcher too, because it's not just her story. Her son, I don't think you really often see, like, we get to see like a father-daughter relationship a lot, but there's something about a mother-son, especially a mother-son relationship, that isn't necessarily very close. That it's like, as hard as she's loved the way that she's loved him has actually put blinders on his selfishness almost. Like she's been able to kind of been in denial of kind of what he's has become. And
it's also reflective in her relationship with her ex-husband
yes,
too. You
and
can
he
imagine
hasn't
what
had
that
great
was.
examples, right? And he hasn't had really great examples of manhood, and it's like the harder she's loved him, the more she's pushed him away, which is like so heartbreaking.
General story with mothers and sons, to be honest.
It's so hard. Oh my God, it's heartbreaking. Yeah. Like it just pushes. She just like the harder. It's like the more she goes at him with need, the more he's just like out the door. And oh my God, I hate it so much.
You're talking to an only child.
Oh
like,
no!
Yeah, like
You better call her right now.
all the time.
Okay.
All the time.
But
Constant contact.
okay, good, Ricky.
Until I eventually say, "Stop talking to me today."
Oh my God, she just loves you. But I think that she's just. So I think it's a very beautiful and interesting dynamic that you don't get to see very, very often.
I don't think you ever get to see a good person the story of a good person who may have accidentally raised a shitty child.
Yeah.
You know,
right.
it's not,
That's a really good way of putting it.
like it's always in movies and TV where if like a good person has a good kid, you know, and a bad person, a bully parent has a bully kid, and that's not necessarily the case because most parents do put blinders on in some ways because it's impossible for them not to.
Well, of course, and your ego's involved, and it's like you can't see clearly.
If also you're a single mother, you have a limited amount of time
Right.
that you can dedicate to certain issues. I think his father even says at one point, it's something that she's guilty of as well, which is that like you seem fine. You're
Yeah.
good looking, you play sports, you have fine grades, you're going to school, you seem okay.
You seem okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not worried about you.
Yeah.
Everyone keeps saying to him, "We're not worried about you," and he, it's like, it's a hard. I can't wait for you guys to see it.
It's great. And one of the, we should talk about the guy who plays your father, the great Josh Hamilton. He's such a wonderful actor.
He's phenomenal.
I've never really gotten to see him play somebody like this. Not a bad guy necessarily, but not fully present, I would say.
No, right. He's got his own, so Ted. He's got his own, Ted. My her ex-husband. He's definitely got his own kind of selfish agenda. And I think, again, it's so interesting. Like what I loved about the book when I read it and the pilot was, I love that it's called Mrs. Fletcher, and that's just a name that just means nothing anymore. Like they'd been divorced 10 years and she's just held on to it. And that so many of this is just a person that had just lived her whole life trying to do the right thing, and it's like all of it. Now she's at this reckoning moment of like, what ultimately did it get her by trying to be a good mom, trying so hard to be a good mom, and ultimately pushing him away, like trying so hard to do good at her job that is like ultimately unsatisfying. Trying to be a good wife, now she's divorced. Like trying to all the things, like she tried to check all the boxes of being like a good person and a good woman and a good girl, and nothing really. What did it ultimately get her by trying to stay within the lines? I think that's a really interesting place to examine. And I really was moved by her bravery without judgment, like trying, I always try to walk into something without judgment, that of just trying to try new things. It happened to be through the Pandora's box of internet porn, but like, I love that that she had the bravery to be able to jump into something without any kind of like apology for it. I think it's like really interesting.
I love that she smokes.
Yeah, her little secret
Her little
vice.
Yeah, she doesn't smoke all the time.
Nope, just once in a while.
She needs one every now and then.
Every once in a while. She probably keeps it in the freezer.
You gotta
those details, I'm always like, how would you keep it in the freezer?
dry
What does it
that
do
tobacco
for it?
out for
Supposed to
yourself.
save it?
Yeah.
Right, exactly. I don't understand it.
burn your throat. One thing, I have to go to audience questions in a second, but one thing that the only thing that I was disappointed in the show was more Dominic Lombardozzi.
Oh, I totally agree. He is the best.
He is so great, and he is given a scene in this show that he's never been given before, which was the eulogy.
Oh,
I've
he's so
never seen him
beautiful.
get the chance to do something like that. He's amazing in that moment.
I wish. Yes, he gives a eulogy in this. That is. Do you guys know who he is from the front? Yeah, from The Wire. He's like a national treasure, and he is so beautiful, and he's such an unbelievable actor, and it's such an amazing human.
And he was in The Deuce this past season and the season before too.
He is. Yeah. I got it. He is such an incredible actor, and to be able to sit and witness him in that day giving that eulogy a few times was a masterclass. He's such a profound actor, I think. Yeah, he's incredible, and I agree with you. Should have been more of him.
He did that great thing in that scene, which is that, like, they always say, like, when you're performing and someone tells you that you have to cry, like, nobody wants to cry in real life, so don't portray someone that's just crying. He does that amazing thing where he's holding everything back, and it still comes forward. He's just beautiful in that scene.
He's so beautiful. Yeah.
Very disappointed though in where it ended up without saying anything.
Okay. He is phenomenal. I agree with you. There should have been more of him for sure. Always though.
Yeah. A few questions from the audience. Who's the question? Right here. Hi.
Hi, my name is Anna Karen. Well, sorry. And my question is, what is something the show has taught you, and what are you hoping the audience learns from the show? Thanks.
That's a great question. I think, it's taught me to be. I hope the audience takes away a little bit of empathy towards people that are living their authentic selves, however that looks like for them, and bravery to live your authentic self, whatever that is for you.
Hi, how you doing? I'm Stefan Petway.
Hi.
My question for you is, how many scripts do you get in advance as you're working in television, and when do you feel as though you've actually gotten the part or the character down to a T?
Oh, that's such a good question. For this, it depends on the project. For this, we got some in advance, but then they changed a lot. Like even sometimes up to the night before. You'd get the scenes for what you were shooting the next day, and sometimes even they would change even the night before. It's like such a living, breathing organism that they do change depending on even who you've cast. Sometimes it starts to look different, and the writers are, and Tom are creating it as it's happening, and it's shifting and changing. You just have to stay really, really flexible. Like I had a teacher in a movement teacher in acting school who would always say champions adjust, and that was kind of a code we would always say. We would be like champions adjust, because we'd have to just stay really flexible because it would constantly change. Sometimes in other projects you would get the whole thing in advance, but this had changed a bunch. And then the second part of the question was, when did you figure out the character? I don't ever feel like I've ever nailed it. It's just kind of, I don't know. I guess if it's just just trying to stay present when I get there and listen. Like I think so much of it is just about listening.
Well, if you feel like you nailed it, you can't be a champion and adjust in a way, right?
You're right.
Yeah.
You gotta just stay flex. And I think just I think most of it for me is just listening to somebody, receiving. Like you get so much from receiving. I think that makes sense.
Next question.
Hi, my name is Michael. One of the roles that introduced me to your body of work was as Olivia Octavius in Into the Spider-Verse. It was a fantastic, surprising role. I'm curious how you were approached for it, and when was the moment where you got to see your performance on screen?
Oh, I love that movie so much, and I love that movie.
They nailed it. It's my favorite superhero movie in a long time because I don't particularly like superhero
Yeah,
movies,
hear
but
you.
I really loved that movie.
I love it all, but I also really loved that. I really, really did. It was something. Yeah, I love that movie and love those creators. And I found out they asked me, which was really exciting, and I didn't really know who it was until I sat down and had the meeting, and then I was like, what? And the fact that it was a woman. Doc Ock was very exciting, and I had to be really, really hush-hush about it, which was like the first time I had to be hush-hush about anything, which was very exciting to have like a secret, because I was like, and
doing this thing, just this voice thing.
right.
Yeah.
I was like, no one. It wasn't like people were like, what are you? No, I mean, so it was like, I know, you know what I mean. So I just had a secret that no one really even cared, because no one even knew that I had a secret. But I was still like. And then when I saw the first, it was way, it's a long process, but I remember them secretly showing me like a little, like a temp of it at some point, and I just flipped because I didn't expect it to kind of look like me a little bit, which I was really thrilled about. But I was so excited by that movie, the music, everything, and yeah, they just did such a beautiful job.
How long was your work on it? Did you keep coming back?
I kept coming back. Yeah, it was like a year of stuff. Wow. In and out. Yeah.
One more question.
Hi, I'm Jordan.
Hi. I love your hair.
Oh, thank you.
It's so gorgeous.
Thank you. I was just wondering who of your past characters you think would be like a good friend for Eve Fletcher and what she's going through.
Such an awesome question. I don't know. I think Carla and Bad Moms would be a really good friend. I think that she would just I think that would be a really fun evening for Eve.
Thank you so much for being here,
Oh,
Kathryn. It's so good to see you.
Always a pleasure. Thank you
Mrs.
so much.
Fletcher, HBO limited series is absolutely wonderful. I've seen every episode. Make sure you tune in. It starts this Sunday at 10:30 p.m. on HBO. The great Kathryn Hahn, everybody. Please give it up.
Thanks so much, you guys.